Hey, to those who are listening, my name is Alexis, and you are tuning in on the first episode of Nowhere to Hide. So, in my podcast, I basically want this first episode to just be a little introduction to myself and just really an introduction that leads into my first topic that'll be in my next episode. And spoiler, first topic is going to be pretty much about identity, going off of my experiences and the strides I've made towards really finding my true identity. But to start, I guess I'm going to start with where I'm from. I'm from Spartanburg, South Carolina. I'm currently in Charlotte, North Carolina. My family is Cameroonian, but, being born and raised in South Carolina, I am a first-generation Cameroonian. But other than that, let's talk a little bit about how I'm feeling. I guess we can start with this is pretty much the second take of the first episode. So I'm a little nervous, honestly, just filming the first episode, it really, just even getting started with recording, I realized that this is a nerve-wracking thing, way more nerve-wracking than I thought it would be. Just having to talk into this mic and kind of overthinking about how I'm going to be perceived by other people. But it really got to me when I started recording. I was doing it with my boyfriend, Josh, pretty much for hours last night. And he was a really big help. I'm honestly, shocked. I'm feeling so calm without him because he really was kind of, centering me and, making me feel good, when I felt like I was veering off or, rambling. I love him. He's great. But other than that, yes, I have the nerves and anxiety, but I definitely have the excitement. I'm ready. I'm, finally doing it, and I'm ready for you guys to just get to know a little bit about me and see, where I'm trying to take this podcast. Going a little bit more into the excitement aspect of it, I just really want you guys to know the passion and drive that is behind me starting this podcast. One, because I didn't really mention before in my introduction, I graduated from UNCC this past December 2023, degree in psychology, minor in sociology, and I've honestly been passionate just about psychology and just the study of the human mind, human behavior, why we think and feel and do the things we do for honestly, and my parents will really quote me on this too. I've been saying this since probably, I want to say, eighth grade. I knew psychology was something I was into, but definitely I remember by my freshman year of high school, I was saying I'm taking the high school psych classes. I'm going to prepare to go into college and get my degree in psychology. Already by high school, I knew. But even though I knew by high school, I didn't really know where I wanted to take it. I knew psychiatry was something that I was thinking for a while, just because, when I still had my parents' mindset and I was just thinking what would make me the most money going into psychology and, doctorate, just get my doctorate, be able to prescribe medication as well as be a therapist. Because therapist was something I was interested in, but again, money mindset. So I went to psychiatry. But it wasn't really till the end of high school where I realized I felt like I had a passion for talking to people, especially when it came to talking to people about certain topics that I'm not only passionate about, but, feel like it just needs to be heard. And basically where I'm going with this too is a certain event that happened my senior year of high school that sparked this whole thing and caused me to have to give a speech and talk to a lump sum of people about something important. So let's get into it. Basically, I went to a private school named Spartanburg Day School in Spartanburg, South Carolina. The day school was great when it came to education and just the resources and just tools it provided for us as students. But when it came to the atmosphere and just the environment for a person of color specifically, and everything I'm saying speaks to my own experience. Maybe not all people of color who went to that school feel the same way I felt, but for me, being one of 4 Black girls in the whole entire high school at the time, and being the only African as well. So that's kind of like a different box that I also felt in. It was just really hard, and I did have to go through a lot of things. I did have to hear things that I just chose to let slide just so I could fit in or not feel like the odd one out with my peers. And that school is also K through 12, might I add, and my parents had put me there in 5K. So just to put into perspective for you guys, I had been there since 5K, been through a lot at that school. And my little brother was also there at the time, also was put in through 5K. Older sister had already graduated, was also there since 5K. But one day, at this point, I was just taking me and my brother to school, bringing us back home for school. I was driving and everything. We get into my car, and my brother just starts crying to me. And I've seen my little brother cry, but, this is random. Like, we're just getting into the car from school. Why are you crying in my car? Like, what's going on? I ask him, is everything okay? And he just tells me one of his friends that he's had for a while at that school, that guy and a couple more of his friends were saying the N-word to him. And in that moment, I just remember my heart sinking, because not only was I hearing that my little brother was getting called the N-word by white people at the school that we both go to, but the same exact thing had happened to me in that same very middle school, in those same hallways. Like, I had white people calling me the N-word and making me feel the same discomfort that he was telling me. And yeah, that everything snapped at that point. We go home. Honestly, maybe Michael could tell me this. I don't remember if we went ahead right away and told our parents, but definitely our parents knew. I bet you we did, honestly. But we went home. I remember I wrote an email to the principal of the middle school. I wrote an email to the principal of the high school. I wrote an email to the dean, basically going off on them, because up until this very point for me, I had let so much stuff slide, like at that school. Just because, I was already at my senior year, I'm just ready to graduate, whatever. But it's like hearing what my little brother had just told me, it just took me back. It started having all the memories and insults and just racial jokes and stuff flood back to me. And it's like, it was one thing that I went through it, but it was different hearing that my little brother went through it. And no, I was going to raise hell. I told the principal, I was like, something needs to be done about this. Like, obviously I still had to think about my little brother, because putting myself in his shoes, when I was in middle school, there was a reason why I didn't make a big deal about it. Because, when you're, his age, being in middle school at the time, I'm not worried about justice. I'm just worried about fitting in with my friends and not getting bullied. And I know that was the position he was in at the time. And even though bullying wasn't really a big thing for Michael, but definitely like if he were to bring attention to that, like who knows what those kids would have done for him. So I understood, and I made it clear to the principals and people that I got involved, like, I don't want, like, I would like something to be done or an announcement to be made to bring awareness to this, but I don't necessarily want it to be obvious that it was Michael who did it. But they said they understood, but I end up finding out later that they ended up taking it in a way where, yeah, they kind of made it obvious that it was about Michael. But again, besides the point, because I know I just went off on a little tangent there. But with that whole situation of my brother telling me about the kids coming to him, saying the N-word, something ignited in me. And I said, enough is enough. I want there to be change at this school. And I went to the guidance counselor, because obviously I was going through a rough time too. Like during that period, I not only had my little brother telling me this, but literally right before senior year, like during the summer, like I had gotten into a fight with my best friend that I had since 7th grade at that school, because she also had said the N-word to me. And I expressed my feelings to her, and she didn't understand why at the time. And, so I was already going through it with the N-word. Like it was a very touchy thing for me. So I was also seeing the guidance counselor at the time, because, there was just a lot of buzz in the small school about that drama with me and that girl and her saying the N-word and us like kind of not being friends. And The guidance counselor, Mr. Bates, at the time, I will say his name because really he is what gave me the confidence to execute this speech and probably, was a chain reaction to me starting this podcast today. But he really helped me out in curating the speech, getting it to an appropriate just level for the students to understand and not feel attacked in, the words I was trying to say and the things that I wanted to get across. But I gave a speech in front of my whole entire high school that year. Plus, like my brother's grade, I made sure they came so they could hear what I had to say. But I gave a speech and, even though I did have some people who critiqued it at the end, because again, K through 12 school, some people wanted to act like they knew exactly what I was saying, bringing up little things kids would tease me, like calling me a Oreo or making fun of my family's culture and accent, whatever. There were people who wanted to say, that didn't happen. I was there, da-da-da-da. But besides those people, I also had really good feedback. Not a lot. Like when I say good feedback, and let me stop because I feel like I was being negative just then. But like, even though I was going on to say about like 3 or 4 people had came to me personally and told me that my speech really had touched them. It's still not a lot, but then again, I don't know who all my speech touched and they just, felt a little awkward to come up to me and say it. But with the few people that did come forth to me, it made me feel something that I don't know, a different type of satisfaction that I'd never felt before. And, I didn't know what I could do with that, but now I'm here doing this podcast and I realize that satisfaction, I'm seeking that here in my audience, hearing my words and, the stuff that I've been through, maybe finding a connection with their lives in what I've been through, and hopefully I can help y'all's lives in some way with that. But moving on from high school, just what I really wanted to convey from me sharing that with you guys is that high school was a very big, or not high school, but specifically senior year in that situation was just a big character development moment for me where I just stopped giving a fuck. Like, honestly, I literally, for once in my life, did not care about how other people would see me, put those feelings aside and did what I thought mattered to me. And that was standing up for not only myself, but for my brother in that moment. And again, all tying into identity for the next episode that I'm going to be diving into. But moving on, I want to talk a little bit about the goals for my podcast. And I already pretty much told you guys with my stories and everything kind of what I'm wanting to do. But my main focus, community-wise, is going to be the African community because, yes, again, I am a first-generation African. And I feel like one of the most important things I want to do with this podcast is just use this podcast as a platform to start these discussions, just important discussions within our community, specifically regarding mental health and emotions and just all the stuff that I studied in college for. Like, there's a lot of things that I brought, to my family and brought to light because of my studies that I feel like need to be more discussed. I've had more conversations with my parents, I feel like emotion-wise in these last couple years, more than I have in my entire life. And I feel like within these conversations, I've been able to connect with them more on an emotional level. And not a lot of Africans can say that they really connect with their parents on an emotional level. And that's something wrong. That's something that, we need to change for the better within our community. And that's just one thing out of a bunch of things that could really change in our community. And hopefully I could help with that. But other than African communities, I also just want to touch foreign American communities in general, not just Africans. It could be Hispanic communities, Asian communities, everybody in between. I just want to also share my space, which I've mentioned before in my descriptions. Like, not only do I want to share my own perspectives on certain things through my stories and just, encounters, but I also want to bring friends and family on so they can share their unique perspectives, whether being just a first generation or, a regular foreign American who came here and have their own just unique experience because of the way they come across to other people. I feel like this space could be a very enlightening space for a lot of people in regards to just learning someone else's perspective to gain insight on yourself even. But I feel like this is coming to an end. I've already told you guys what's to come, and that's going to be the next episode, diving in on identity. I feel like I gave you guys a good bit of background in regards to just a little bit. Like, I'm not going to say I spilled everything about my past, but, I feel like I've given you guys a good rough little background on myself, what's brought me here, and I really just want to dive into identity and specifically the journey I've made from who I was specifically before I moved to North Carolina to now, having been in North Carolina for 4 years. I feel like I truly have found my identity. I truly can say I know who I am, what I love, what I don't like. I know the person I truly need to show up as every single day, who is authentically me. But unfortunately, I never could always say this. Like, there was a point in my life now, looking back, where I don't really know who that person was. And the way I was able to make that discovery for myself is going to be discussed in the next episode. So stay tuned, and I will catch you guys next time.